do you stay healthy? This is a question I find it very interesting to ask every doctor I meet whenever they happen to have the time on hand to answer it. And I do so because I find that every doctor has a different perspective and they add a piece to the puzzle that is my well being. And so recently, about a month ago, I asked a doctor at a hospital in Delhi, and this person was an endocrinologist, somebody who treats diabetes and is actually quite reputed in his field. And when I asked him this, he looks at me and without batting an eyelid, he says, "Stay off Instagram." And I said, "Okay." I didn't know that was bad for my health. And and then he did a little exercise with me, which I'm going to repeat right now very quickly. Is I have my Instagram on, and I've just opened up the regular search feed. And because I bake at home, I obviously Google around a lot about cakes and baking. So my very first post is showing a girl eating Alia Bhatt's favorite milk cake in Delhi, and she's digging into a very, very light sponge, and I can see the milk oozing out. And it's not just the way the milk is oozing out. I can see her facial expression and I can see the delight. I can see the joy. I can see the comfort. I can see all those emotions that are linked to eating sugar and something really, really tasty. And, as I go down as I keep scrolling, I see cookies that are fat and almost bursting with caramel that I love. There's dark chocolate ganache just dripping off cakes. There's incredibly soft looking ice cream, the really, really melty kinds, which still somehow manages to hold its shape. And it does make me hungry. And not only does it make me hungry, it makes me want to eat that specific item. And this opened up a very interesting conversation with that doctor about the responsibility of food media and food visuals and the role that they have to play in public well being. This is Sonalia Charchi, and you are listening to Health Wealth, a podcast that hopes to leave you feeling better informed about various aspects of your well being, but also very motivated to make the right choices and to understand that health is not just one thing, it's a entire gamut of things, and it includes various aspects, including our social media lives, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to do this podcast. And it works both ways. If we are looking towards the role that media or food visuals have to play in our health, um, I think we also need to look at the health of food bloggers or food writers or those in the food industry. Because I was recently at a chai stall on the side of the street in Delhi, and a lady came with her camera, a tripod, everything set up. And these days the equipment is just wow. Like I start feeling old when I'm only 36. But it was amazing. And I was looking at her and it was all great till I saw her cringing as she was eating. And every time she was off camera, she was just looking sick. And when she was done, I looked at what she was eating. It was a strange orange colored noodle thing. And so I went to ask and I was like, that doesn't look very good, but what is it? And she said, it's Fanta Maggie. It's a viral trend and I have to get on it. And I said, did you like it? And she said, no. And I said, why did you eat it? And she said, well, it's a viral trend. I mean, as if, that speaks for itself. But she looked unhappy, dissatisfied, and actually quite unhealthy just by her general figure. And I'm not fat shaming or anything, but definitely obesity is a problem today. Diabetes is a problem today. And if someone's job is to constantly eat, how do they stay safe and healthy? So I reached out to somebody whose posts make me want to eat healthy. And he's with us today. It's Kalyan Karmakar. He is a food writer and an author, and he's joining us from Mumbai. Hi, Kalyan.
Hi. It's so lovely to speak to you, Sonali. I was cringing at the thought of the anchor Maggie. But yeah, so I've seen it. Yeah. I
Would
think
you?
the role of food is the reverse. I mean, it's something which will give you joy. But
Yeah. But do you ever feel that as a food writer and somebody who's always around food that you might have to eat foods that won't give you joy?
yeah, so I was listening to the fact when you said you're 36 and you know don't feel that young. In fact, the other day I spoke to a chef who was 36, and he kept saying when I was younger. Well, I've been blogging since 16 years, so which means I was 34 when I started. If you do the math, I'm
Mhm.
just going to turn 51 in a couple of months.
Mhm.
So obviously, the way one could eat in 34, one can't eat now. But I think there are also different sorts of food blogging. So when I started, it was writing and on a blog, long form blog. Then it was Instagram, which is about photographs. And then now it's about video where you're in front of the camera. So now there are people who have to eat regularly, professionally. And then you sort of need to make your choices and figure out what works for you, what doesn't work for you. Like, for example, in my case, I try to stay away from tasting experiences which are hosted by restaurants, which, apart from the fact that it's not always a real experience, but the thing is that there's a lot of food put in front of you. Or like when I'm shooting now, when I do these various series and it's a small crew, it's me and someone else, then I pack the food and get it back and stuff. I don't like wasting. Or when you're in a larger crew, then you say the problem is of sometimes when you're alone,
Mhm.
then what do you do? So you sort of tend to pack it. And also the thing is that by now one has developed a nose. I think it was always there in terms of what is good food, in terms of what you're likely to like, and I tend to gravitate towards that. And since in my case, my writing is not about covering every new opening and every day, so I'm not compelled to go to places where I wouldn't. Like once upon a time, I used to cover new places, but that back then, even in a place like Mumbai, like there would be a new place maybe once in a month and a half or something like that. While now there are three new places opening in half a day, so you can't really cover 10. And the other thing, like you said about this lady who was cringing, I think I think it's very important to convey what you feel or like about. So if you go towards food which you like, then
Mhm.
you are going to go towards food which eventually is not bad for you. But having said that, if your profession requires you to eat all the time, missing, then people find different modes, like either portion control or mm, just on the camera, or like shooting, sharing it with the people over there, having a bite before going, or sometimes if you're out all day shooting, you might carry your food because eventually you can't like harm yourself while you're eating. But at the same time, it's also important to stay true to yourself. So, I mean, of course, in the audience might feel you're eating all of that, but no one does. But the thing is, whether you can take a small amount, get a taste of it, and can genuinely say what you feel about it, versus like, um, and the other thing is that to ask yourself that is this something which you would like to eat? Are you okay eating it? So I think that it's important to sort of put in your own filters. Also, what happens is, even in a natural case, as you grow older, you become more cognizant or aware of these things. But I've also seen that, younger folks in the early 20s who are, influencers, they do different things like they gym very vigorously or stuff like that, but even
Yeah.
they're getting slowly aware of the fact that um, you should not eat that much or try
Yeah.
to go away from carb heavy stuff or fried stuff.
I do find that when something is unique, like a butter chicken momo or a dal rice sushi or these food fusions and so on, it does garner interest online. And very often that seems to be the end goal of a lot of food influencers. to get visibility and to make this into a sort of monetary monetized profession, versus what you're saying, which is just the joy of eating.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but I also have seen something very unique towards your Instagram, where yes, you do go and have that pulao, or I stay away from pulaus just because I can't control myself with rice. So I avoid those posts of yours. But you also have these very nice home cooked meals.
Right.
And I like that. I don't think there's enough of celebrating simple food cooking. And I love that you're promoting home chefs. And could you just explain a little bit about how you balance that eating out and eating in sort of a thing, and are you have you become more health conscious over the years?
Sorry, I mean, these cupping bouts just come when you don't want them. So, yeah, I have one become more health conscious over the years because one is with age, doctors sort of bombard you with stuff. Also during COVID, a couple of times when I had COVID and my sugar sort of hit a high, so I had to go on diets and stuff like that. But otherwise, what I try to do is that I try to balance my eating out with eating in, and 80% of my meals are home meals. Then there would be a percentage above this, which is also like Swiggy or something. Probably less than 80% if I take an account of that. But there also one will go to restaurants where one is a call from restaurants, which one is regular, and no other dishes which ones you call. So now what I try to do is to show people that while I might be having a fish kodivara or spaghetti carbonara or something like that, but I'm also having meals which are about bhajra roti, which are about green morsel or vegetables or parela and stuff like that. Uh, because that's what I'm having. Now, the other thing which happened was that, when my doctors said that I need to go into this, this sort of eating, then initially it seemed like a sentence, like a jail sentence that you have to eat karela, lauki, stuff you've never eaten, whole beans and stuff. But then I said that, okay, I'm a food blogger. I know how to make food taste good. And for me, food has to be good. So then one sort of figured out various ways of making food tastier, including like the fact that we were talking of Instagram and the fact is that we eat from our eyes. So I made sure that the food looks appealing to me. Like even as a kid, so, parents sort of do things like rolling up food in a ball or, your Mickey Mouse plate and all that. So you should feel good about eating the food. So I started buying a lot of crockery, basic stuff again, nothing like this thing, but nice designs and stuff like that. And then sometime back, my wife bought me a thali on my birthday, copper brass set, couple of days back.
Yeah.
And initially, I told her that I mean, why you bought something so expensive and things like that. But after that, I think I've used it for almost every Indian meal at home, and so has had full paisa vasool, and that has made a lot of people want to eat thalis and stuff.
Me
So
included. It's beautiful.
yeah, so that's it. So and
Yeah.
it's we are so convenient and
Mm.
everything. So that's what I try to do. It would be wrong if I say that I'm a complete good boy, because especially at night, I often sort of slip in after dinner and croissants, this, that stuff. So you sort of try to keep them away. And then now, a separate question is that of home chefs. So I'm sort of familiar with the home chef, the modern home chef movement, because you've always had home chefs who would send dabbas or sell papas and all that. But this modern thing of home chef brands, where like people who were who cook and then became sort of famous through social media, and their food has a story to it, comes at a cost which is very different. And they were doing festivals, pop-ups. All that started before the pandemic. Pandemic happened, everything shut down, And then they were the ones who first, when things opened a bit, who started cooking and putting enough for delivery. And, we all started ordering. In fact, my wife, Kanas, was not too much into Indian food. So she is an Indian, so South Indian, all that. She now says that we've had one of our, we've had the best food which we've had ever during the lockdown because we'd be getting, food from this thing. And then I saw that, there was a lot of concern and this thing about, say, restaurants, say, chefs, hotels, and what's going to happen to them. And then I felt that, there's this entire sort of movement coming up. And I found very interesting because I know of cases like among our friends and including in the neighborhood. For example, there's this lady who's now become a very good, popular Malwani home chef, Maharashtra coastal food. And her food is like really good. So during the pandemic, like they had a family printing business. So that shut down. And then she started working on this with her mom, who was with her at that time because this was the pandemic, something had happened. So the mom was there, so mom was stuck. And, to get this sort of food was fabulous. And then slowly what happened, and this I've seen in many cases, that it became the lady of the house who became, the one who's earning. And in some cases, what happened was that, um, and specifically in the social economic class which you're talking of, like in this case, this is Marwari Khana in Delhi, Abhilasha Jain, Pallavi over here, whom I was speaking of. So the entire family, the husband, they came across to support, and there have been cases where the husband's actually sort of given up his job or whatever to work, and they're
And help
seeing
them.
this as
Yeah.
their family business. So I thought that this was um, interesting at three levels, and from three for me to talk about. One is for me, I'm always fixated by good food. So for me, it's not really about the name versus where it's coming from. So I don't focus just on fancy places, but this thing. Second was so first of all, it was good food. Second was that I thought it's a huge way of sort of women empowerment. And I've been raised by a single mom. My dad passed away when I was quite young. He was a doctor, by the way, so that's the closest I can, to be a doctor on the show. Then, of course, my wife's a strong, independent career woman, sort of supports to the same. So, and I also felt that, this is something which is really organic because this is taking the skill which women have and which is often like not considered really important, but taking that into converting this into a serious business opportunity. So that was there. And the third thing I felt was that no one really spoke much about them. So since I had a sort of, certain media space to use that. And in fact, what I also did at that time was I did an awards called Home Chefies, where what we did was that we awarded home chefs on the basis of their brands because you can't do it on the basis of the food because you couldn't try it and it was a lockdown, so forget it in Bombay. But since I have a marketing background, so what I did was we asked them to put up all their, their brand collateral, and the judging panel which I came up with was completely a non-food thing. So you had Harsh Goenka, who's the CEO of Goenka RPG. Then you had Pawan Narasimha, who was at that time an ED at Unilever, the head of Colgate Palmolive, CEO now. And similar Anil Vishwanathan, who headed marketing Cadbury. Now he's a country head in Vietnam. So, I got people from that marketing world who could then aid them. And the other thing which we did was that we got sponsors, and what we did was that we first decided on a cash prize. So we said the winner in each category, and no one had to pay to enter, would get 10,000 rupees, and there would be a winner of champions. So that person will get another 10. So actually 20. And then there was some money left, and which was, I mean, a smaller proportion. So that, and I was working with a sort of company. So we split it equally. But the point is that since one had the good fortune of being in a position where one could support. So this thing and it's not out of pity. Generally feel that it was great stuff, and it's lovely to see how people have progressed. I mean, with the pandemic ending, like a lot of people got back to the regular stuff, but it's great to see, and it's also good to see now like chefs and restaurants also making an effort uh, because it also works from a sustainability or carbon footprint sort of thing. So if you're trying to get local cheese instead of imported, that also helps. And also, you know who's your producer, where it's coming from. So it was, yeah.
So tell me, this is a problem I always have. It's a problem of trust. So I have this in general. Even if I'm in a flight, I'm like, who's the pilot? I need to meet him. How many hours has he done? And so on and so forth. Which doesn't always work out. But when it comes to kitchens, whether it's a home chef or a restaurant, I can't always call up and say, what's in this food? And so how do you sort of trust or put that faith in quality and the fact that they're not masking the food with, say,
Mm.
some sort of cheese or butter or ghee and so on?
So are you speaking about me
Yeah.
individually
Yeah.
or you as in
Yeah.
one?
Would you
So I think that
have a metric or a system or something?
no. The
Yeah.
only systems in the head or the gutter that I mean. I think that you get a feel of when you can. I think by now one can sense like which is good food and which is not. Like if I take the extreme, which is street food, like generally people feel
Mm,
it's not safe and stuff, but you get an idea of when is this thing. And there were two places recently which I stepped into, and I got the sense that it's not working out. So in two places I placed the order and then I actually left. Like I packed the stuff,
mm,
paid them and left. And I didn't even give it to anyone because in one case I saw there was a mouse
mm,
just running across.
yeah.
Now and another case when I was eating it, I didn't really have a good feel about it, both in terms of the taste.
Mm,
More about the taste, it just didn't seem right. And sure enough, like halfway through my drive back, I started feeling nauseous. Thankfully, I came home and threw up. And then what I did was that it's a small place, and there was a backstory to the place, and that's why I went there. And then I thought that I saw other people eating there, and the people were regulars, and so I didn't really go hammer and tongs after them, which I would have in the past. But I just stayed away,
yeah.
and so like a lot of people want to send me food or sort of invite me to
Mm,
uh, places, and that comes with the perks of the job. But it's only when I feel that I'm convinced about it
mm,
that I say, sort of, okay. There have been some cases where, say, I might have tried the stuff and not liked it, and they might still call you, or this you want to send it, this thing. So then one keeps saying no, and after they do it, just won't talk about it
yeah.
or stuff. But yeah.
Yeah. That's and you also mentioned
But
you're not
you were
always
saying that,
yeah.
so like last time I just felt like having some noodles. I called in for hakka noodles
Mhm.
and stuff like that, which
Yeah.
by no means is healthy. But within that, also, what I did was when I ate it, then obviously not the whole portion, I took a smaller portion.
Mm.
But I made sure to take out all the chicken pieces and all the vegetable pieces and have that. So at least you're ensuring that,
Yeah,
as
it's not
much
just
carb
empty
as
carbs.
possible,
Yeah.
you're just having as much protein as possible within what was there. And
Mm.
or now when we go out, we try to have a salad or a vegetable dish along with what we're having. And
And
yeah.
what you said that and that you didn't take the noodles and put it inside a sandwich because of
So I just saw someone posting
yeah,
about a sandwich store outside Xavier's in Bombay, where she used to
which
go to in
noodles.
college. And she went back recently and she saw that there was a Szechuan pasta sandwich. So,
Amazing.
yeah,
What a
yeah,
mix.
yeah, yeah,
So you did mention that you're not always a good boy when it comes to food.
yeah.
What would you say is, one thing which is not the best for your health in terms of nutrition? that you really, really love to have? And how do
Um,
you sort of control staying away from that? Like, say you go to a place and that's there on the table. Do you give
so should I
in?
tell you the truth? The
Yes,
truth is that if I
because we are
like
going to learn
some,
from you.
yeah, no, no. So I'll tell you the truth. It's just avoidance, because the fact is that if I love something, I find it very hard to sort of stop myself. Um, so like even a couple of days back, I went to a Japanese restaurant, and then I told the chef that I'm not going to have the desserts, but he said, try these three things. These are specialities. Just have a bite, then you pack it. And then one bite became three, four bites. So they were each very good. So when I
Yeah.
said by avoidance, what I try to do is I avoid going out unless is absolutely necessary. Um, and then also you go to
Yeah.
good places, and you try not to like there's this place I'm supposed to go to, which is like a Lucknow place, and it has Kafni Pulao and Nihari and all that on weekends. I couldn't make it yesterday, so I'm going to go next Sunday. I know I'm going to finish a lot of that. So I think the way I try to do is that the meals which I can regulate, I'd like to regulate, and that's where I have a problem. Like say at night, I'm a lot into night snacking, unfortunately, and I like the namkeens and the cheeses and all that. And that's when I feel bad when I succumb to it, because I just feel that okay, like the stuff outside, I would have to try. So but this I don't have to. So yeah. Well, one example is that of alcohol, and so we used to drink, and it just so happened that coincidentally during the pandemic, one sort of stopped because one just sort of just grew out of it. And now what happens is that every place, like people will say try a bit and is that whatever, but it's a blanket thing. When I said, "Oh, I don't drink," I mean, it's not a moral thing. I think I'm just giving that as an example.
Mm.
Now, I wish if I could do with that with dessert, if I could just say that, no, I will not
Mm.
have, or I'll not, but,
Yeah. And
but I
sugar
think
is something
avoidance,
which is
yeah,
difficult.
I think avoidance work. See, the other thing is between the difference between me and your Fanta lady is
Mhm.
that I do it is that I Fanta Phantom is that I do it because I love food, you know.
Yes. And
So I will talk about like if I'm going to talk about something, I need to try it and then talk about it. So yeah, so I
yeah.
can't really. And the thing is now with video, you further can't fake it. Also, the
Mm.
sort of stories, like I remember, like there was this time when, like I said, in COVID and all that, and sugars were brought
Mhm.
up, or this before that,
Mhm.
and I had to write a story for a magazine on Diwali sweets. And I went to this Maharashtrian Diwali sweet shop called
Mhm.
Pansikar, and the entire article was actually about the different types of sweets. The gentleman who ran it, his family, it's a very old family, and they
Mhm.
now have five branches. So his
Mhm.
uncle had started it, and then the Maharashtrian sweet culture, that is either peras or laddus, and how they're different
Mhm.
types. So I didn't really need to eat anything to say that, because
That's right. Yeah.
it was really, I was not saying that this is good, this is bad. I was
Mm.
just, and at that point I couldn't eat. So I could do that. But the thing is, in front of a camera, it is difficult.
Mhm.
Uh, and people do fake it, but I think it's very easy to make out when,
Yeah.
especially like with all these celebs, and when Lodi is coming up and this that, so
Yeah.
people will
Yeah.
by marking ghar ka gujia on this and like this, that once the camera's off, they're going to put it in.
Yeah.
So wow, yeah,
Well, you know what really sort of gets me off track is when what I call is unhealthy healthy food. So there are all these food trends which mahua laddus, it still has
yeah,
a lot of
yeah,
sugar.
yeah,
So I
mm,
would like to get your opinion on some of these healthy food trends
yeah,
and
yeah,
whether you think there's anything behind it. So the first that's really taken off is A2 Bologna cow ghee, which is fine in a little bit, but people are
right,
drizzling it all over everything.
yes,
Do you
yeah.
think there's
Yeah,
any
so sorry,
yeah?
so
Do you
you were
think
saying
there's
something.
any I mean, apart from the fact that it is healthy, it's not unhealthy per se, but even in terms of taste, like if you just douse everything with cow ghee, is it really going to taste that good either?
Yeah, so there's ghee or there's this famous pav bhaji in Mumbai, Sardar pav bhaji, where they put in such a big slab of presumably amul butter, and the butter really overrides everything. But that aside, I think that this is misleading, and this is this wrong. I mean, it's completely wrong. So first of all, when brands approach me to talk from a health point of view, and that's a personal thing, but I say no because I feel that, like for example, if they say that I've got a oil which will make your heart better, so I say that look, I can't really comment on that. If you want me to say that if I fry a samosa with your oil, will it taste the same or not? I can say that. Okay, so that's one angle. So I feel that is misleading, and so one thing is sugar free. So say as a diabetic, so if you're diabetic or even a weight loss thing, you see sugar free, you can be exempted. But then you see that it's a coconut sugar, jaggery, honey. Now, all of this
Yeah.
is wrong because they are as insidious as
Mhm.
regular sugar.
Yeah.
So for the same person, if who's say absolutely healthy, okay, this is better.
Yeah,
But
for
if
a
you have an
diabetic.
issue with sugar, that is wrong. Secondly, I mean, all these things of millet noodles, whole wheat noodles, breads, if you go and see it, you will see that, okay, 5% this, 20% stabilizer, 80% all purpose flour, which is maida. Um, then this entire baked but fried farsan thing or makhana and all of that packaged makhana, they're extremely high on sodium and salt. You can get the makhana, you can dry roast it with ghee, you can decide on the salt and pepper. So my only thing is that if you're going to have a farsan, if you're going to have a cake, if you're going to have it, this thing, just have it, or ideally not have it. But I'm saying that selling it to people on a false promise is not
Yes.
right. And sometimes when I question people and I say, "Oh, you're saying sugar free, but it's this." Yeah, but it's not refined sugar. And technically, you're right. I mean, it's like it is sugar free. You're not qualifying with sugar, but it's a bit like Yudhishthir's Ashwatthama Hathi
Yeah.
is dead sort of thing that it's a
And
white
what
lie.
about millets? Because I know you do post a lot not your millet
Yeah,
pick
yeah,
meals.
yeah.
So
So, see, millets are said to be good because, first of all, a sustainability point of view, require less water and stuff like that. Very low glycemic index stuff. So, one is if you cook millet in with the least amount of interference. So, if you're not mixing millet with other attas and stuff like that, then it's good. Two is it's important to understand that even if it's millet, at the end of it is still carb. So it doesn't give you the license to only have five nasni puris or parathas or vares like we have in Maharashtra with different grains. And that's the problem which often happens if you take something which you perceive to be healthier and you don't do any portion control. That's a problem. The other thing is that millets and genetics. So if you suddenly change your
mm,
diet to a full millet thing, from what I understand, in even millet proponents like Rujuta Devekar and all that, say that you don't need to shift entirely. Like because if you've grown up on rice, grown up on this thing, then do it gradually. And the other thing I've seen is that if I have millet-based roti, or if I have, say, red rice or parboiled rice, I get filled faster than if I'm having, regular rice or atta
mhm,
roti and stuff. So from that way, it's good that
yeah,
you're having a small amount and
yeah.
getting full.
Um,
So I think millets are good, but like in everything in life, you need to keep your blinkers on.
yeah.
I mean,
You know,
blinkers on.
um, there is a lot happening with antibiotic free poultry and free range eggs, which I would agree is healthy, is a better choice, but it's also very expensive.
Exactly.
Um, do you think it's worth it? You can
So
afford
like
it?
it's no, so that's what I'm saying, that it is very expensive. So I don't think that there'll be too many people who will be able to afford it, especially when it comes to free range eggs and so on, because the demand is low. the prices haven't really come down. Also, there are debates as to what is the difference between a brown egg and a white egg, and is it actually different? Like visually, it is like the yolk is redder
Mhm.
and stuff, so you feel good. I think with things like chicken and all that, there is still, I think, there is more of affordability. I mean, it's still a high end premium thing, but it's not an exclusive sort of stuff. But again, there's a lot of fear mongering. So there was a time when, if you take chicken, we were told that red meat is evil, therefore get on the chicken, and no one really saw how that chicken was being raised. Or they said that you know our cold press oils are these things to get into refined oils and stuff. So it's a bit difficult with all these messages being bombarded, processed versus unprocessed. So there's also a question of practicality or organic food and all. So if one makes the best choices, which one can, and I've done studies myself as a researcher, and if I look at my own pattern also, that when it comes to say vegetables or fish or stuff like that, often you might still go to your local vendor whom you know. So we have a guy, earlier we used to go to the market. There's a guy who now comes with his cart every day.
Right.
So you're picking up stuff from him, not necessarily from an organic place and stuff. Or everyone's worried about, say, antibiotics and
Mhm.
pesticides and all of that. But you might know about it, but at the end of it, how much can you change your
Yeah.
behavior based on that? How practical is it? Yeah.
Yeah. You know, when your Lysol
Yeah.
also, sorry, you shouldn't be
Yeah,
saying that.
yeah,
No
yeah.
living brands.
And again,
Yeah.
there's a lot of misinformation. So, for example, in a true organic, for to get a true organic certification, from what I understand of this thing, but I think you have to have 3 years without any pesticides being used on that ground, or 3 cycles or things like that. But here, organic would be that. Also, people who say that if you're growing it one round without putting chemical fertilizers, it's organic. There are some people, and I didn't realize it, but it's been pointed out to me, where the brand might say organic, but it's not actually organic. But they said, no, it's just our brand name, and we feel that blah blah blah. But it's actually misleading,
Yeah.
and yeah. So and
So,
the thing is that they are. Yeah, you could say that they have FSSAI rules and all that, but you can always play around with it, be economical with the truth, as they said
yeah.
in the Prime Minister. So,
So we have a small farm very close by to my place in Delhi, and of course it's a small farm, so they make small produce, vegetables, and they have some chicken. They're very expensive. So I did convince a friend. I mean, she's not earning a lot, and she said I can't afford it. So I said, well, your facial budget, you put that into this because this is much better and more important, and you'll feel good. And she did that. But what happened was when she brought it back home, she's not the one who's cooking, and it's her home cook who cooks. And then she called me up screaming, and she's like, "Oh, home cooking is just useless. She's put more oil than what I get on Zomato. I might as well have bought some home chef food on some place and so on." Now you have a cook who seems to make very healthy food. Uh,
mm.
how have you worked with her to sort of achieve this?
No, I'm not sure. So
It
I
looks
think,
very healthy to me.
yeah,
Loki and,
yeah.
parwal and
No, so
yeah.
there are two things. One is the okay, because just because you spoke about oil, so
Mm.
Loki, Parval, and all that, and then the oil which goes into it. So 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 I sort of decide on what has to be cooked. If it's my recipe, then I tell them, or I might go on the internet and say on YouTube and find stuff, and then send her the link and say to cook from it, and then I'll give the feedback that this had more oil, or maybe this is how, or like say when it comes to sauteing mushrooms, there'll be a lot of oil and they'll be pretty flaccid. So one day I sat and said, see, this is how to make it. You don't crowd the thing, you sear it, see how in 10 seconds it's begun to become brown in the edges. Just turn it on ulta and you're done. Similarly with prawns and stuff. or you don't need to. So I think it's a combination of that. But what I've seen is that where cooks tend to struggle a lot is when it comes to vegetables, because cooks are always in a hurry to cook and go to the next house, and vegetables take time to cook because they don't have that much of natural fat in them, and also they're very delicate. Like if it's meat or fish or something, you have a bit more of a margin of error in terms of time. But vegetables, cooking is actually really a science. It's much tougher to cook vegetables, even though they're not considered to be as sexy as non-veg. But so the fact of the matter is, if I'm making the same vegetable dish myself versus them, it would. So then, I mean, I try to show that, okay, this thing, sometimes they might not be around when it happens. I might take pictures and say, let's see, this is the difference between what I did and you did, and stuff. And
Oh gosh, you go to
yeah,
oh, wow.
so
Yeah.
I am a
That
pretty
that's an excellent
tough
way of
tasker.
teaching them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but but see, it's this way that to me, what I eat and what we eat is very important. So I'll do the most, just as say, for
Fact,
example,
it is
in a
important to
corporate
a lot of
manager reaching the
people.
goal is,
We just give up on
yeah,
it, you know?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And this works because I once asked my cook to make. I mean, I rarely ask her to cook anything actually, but except food for my dogs. But I did ask her to make a a beetroot thoran, and I don't like it deep fried. I don't like it steamed with water. I just like it, when it
yeah.
slow cooks and
I
it
know. Yes,
caramelizes
exactly.
inside.
Yes, yes. It's very
So
difficult
difficult
to,
for them, for
yeah,
her to
yeah,
grasp that concept.
yeah.
And
So I'll tell
actually,
you what, Iska, the main solution to that is that get into the kitchen. Like, for example, this lady with her facial budget. So just as no, and I mean, just as say that's important to you, and you might go to find out the best product or the best salon or the best professional over there. So take some effort, take some time out, and also the more we get our hands dirty in the kitchen, I think the more conscious we become of the quality of products which we're using.
Mhm.
Otherwise,
Yeah.
organic and all that is quite
Yeah.
pointless. Your maid will say that tomatoes kitne safed hai,
Yeah.
ye kitna bada hai, whatever. So, I mean, and it's once you get in the kitchen, you'll realize like I don't really bake desserts, but the few times when I did, I said, oh God, so much sugar goes into making cookies, or so much butter goes into making a
A
cake.
lot.
And
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then you won't want to make it yourself, or like even when having it, you'll be a bit.
Yeah.
But the same thing I'll say fish fry, like with less oil, one can bring out a far better quality fish fry than they would with more oil. And restaurants would really over fry it
Mhm.
because that I think that care which goes in when you're cooking for yourself or for people who matter to you, that makes a big difference.
Just my last thing is talking more about your profession and the role that they play in public well-being. Because I would say food media is a part of everyone's lives, and we do have rising obesity, diabetes, heart disease, you name it. Sometimes I feel quite guilty because disease ensures I always have something to write on. But
Yeah.
really, I also am hoping that all these figures will come down. And in therein, I am very curious to know what role do you think food bloggers should play in this? I mean, should you be advocating good health, not advocating a lot of these deep fried momos and cake
Yeah.
stuffed with cookies, stuffed with, I don't know, halwa or
Mhm.
whatnot. Yeah.
So, first of all, there are different types of food blogging. So there's people who write about recipes, the history, people, and all of that, and health. So it's not that, though that the sort of blogging which you're talking of is what what our eyes gravitate towards because of rule value and stuff. And also, I don't think that food writers or bloggers, they should be responsible, and I have a point of view on that. But we are not necessarily meant to be like the your moral gatekeeper of your food thing because, um, if you have a problem with bloggers talking about bakeries where everything's filled with sugar and this thing, then don't give them licenses. Or you know, if you don't want people to have bhajias, then don't this thing. But my bigger thing is that the food blogger or writer has to be honest. That you should genuinely say what you feel and what works for you. And chances are that if you're in your 20s or 30s, something which will work for you will not work for someone who's in their 40s, 50s. But I think that if it comes on the heart, if it reflects what you truly believe in, I think that is your duty. And don't get into areas which are not yours. So, for example, you might see that the trending thing is this A1, A2 milk, but do you really need to, like, for example, I don't know, if A2 is supposed to be healthy. Yeah. Then if you sort of get into it saying that, oh, A2 is healthy, and let me show you 20 ways of making Diwali mithai with A2, um, you might not really know. I mean, like, or the thing which is being said as unhealthy might be unhealthy at this sort of quantity, like this pinch, like Ajinomoto.
Mhm.
The jury's out with whether if it's used as salt, like the way it's meant to be, versus the
Mhm.
way it's done where it's heaped in. So I would be worried if bloggers go beyond themselves, beyond their sort of merit or brief, and start talking about health and all that. Talk about what you know well, um,
Yeah.
and um, just as a chef should cook whatever he feels correct about. If it's something which he would not eat, and for a general reason, like say, if you're diabetic, doesn't mean that you can't make desserts and you lose out a career opportunity. Or if you're a
Mhm.
chef, you can't eat everything. You have to eat small amounts. But if it's something you'd feel wrong giving it to someone who matters to you, then we wouldn't cook it. Similarly, if you feel wrong that if someone who matters to you will take your advice and have it, then don't have it. So yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I think, but I don't think that we are meant to be the gatekeepers of the health morality or
You are.
thing.
Yeah. And I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
um, it just comes down to what you said. If
yeah,
you're
yeah.
sticking to the
So,
joy of
so,
the
so,
thing.
yeah. So, as a person, like, I'm in a stage where I'm more conscious of my health than when I'm in my 20s, and therefore, um, that creeps into my content or writing or videos, which is a good thing. I mean, it's creeping into it. But again, it reflects what I believe in. And
Yeah.
uh, you might really get excited saying that this is the no sugar cake. And then you question, and I say it's got date. So did you know? And the person might not actually know that, the
Yeah.
influencer, that date is not good if you have
Mhm.
diabetes. So I think, yeah, I mean, let's not, um,
Put the onus completely
yeah,
on the
yeah,
food.
let's not exceed the brief. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much. This is something that I've been wanting to do for a while. How does a food blogger avoid temptation? So
Yeah,
thank you
yeah.
for sharing all that you have.
You're most welcome. I don't know what the takeout is. I think
Avoid
only way
it.
to
That's
avoid temptation is avoidance. Yes, yes. Till you become like, you
yeah. Thank you very much. Thank
salvation moksha.
I'd like to finish by just going back to the story when I asked the doctor, how do I stay healthy? And he said, stay away from Instagram. And we did discuss that a little bit more. And so you do need to adapt to the fact that food media is all around us and food visuals are much more visible today. And I've had to adapt to this recording because my dogs are barking, and I've had to sort of make do by silently scolding them with facial expressions and giving them my sweater sleeve. And it's torn now. So great. But the way I've adapted to the food culture is to stop mindlessly scrolling, just looking. And that's when you get tempted the most. That mindfulness has helped a lot. I know it's a very, very overused word, but it is the best thing, to be a little bit aware that, constantly reminding yourself that this is not good for you and all the reasons you don't want to have that brownie cookie. And that's helped me a lot. If this podcast was useful to you and you've enjoyed it, please do leave us a rating. We're there on Apple, Spotify, the India Today website, and YouTube. And if there's a certain health topic you'd like to know more about, or if you'd like me to bring a certain speaker on the series, then please do write to us. We're there at pods@indiatoday.com and on 8588966996.